Toxic English VAs ruin careers to enforce Genshin strike. That was a complete lie. By versus Desu. The Genshin, the English VAs, are continuing. They are continuing. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Let's go.
Guys, Rip here. So today we're going to be once again returning to the ongoing English voice acting drama that has really been dominating a lot of headlines over the past week or so. In our previous two videos, we talked about a strike that is being used to essentially put pressure on non-union actors in order to join the union or to have various companies sign contracts with the union. Now, with the help of a very knowledgeable individual on this subject, we're going to really put a final nice bow on this situation, and it's going to be very clear that this strike was not some formal action trying to protect voice.
I think that guy isn't it the same guy that voices one of the Wuwa characters? I might be wrong, but I thought it was. I forgot his name though.
Actors from AI. Instead, it was an informal attempt by these voice actors to dogpile on non-union actors and companies in order to make them want to join SAG-AFTRA. So before we get into the new stuff, let's quickly remind ourselves what we covered in the previous two videos. So several, probably a few dozen union voice actors were immediately jumping on non-union voice actors over their supposed crossing of an invisible line of a strike that was aimed by union.
Multiple union voice actors doing it to multiple non-union voice actors? The only thing I saw was Jacob getting attacked.
Union actors to protect these actors from AI replicants. Now, this thing really kicked off recently when one Genshin Impact voice actor announced, after boycotting the last 6 months, after striking his position and not providing any voice acting lines, he was let go and replaced by a different non-union voice actor named Jacob Takanashi, who is based in Japan and didn't even know this strike was taking place. However, that did not stop dozens of Takanashi's peers, including people at Genshin Impact, from dogpiling on him, calling him a scab, calling him diabolical, saying he's a clout chaser, even saying he is now blackballed from the voice acting industry as a result of violating this supposed...
I mean, he is in Japan. Therefore, if he just takes Japanese rules, he should still be fine. I guess.
Strike. We even saw SAG-AFTRA themselves contribute to the conversation in a community noted.
Ooh. Ooh. Genshin Impact Honkai Star Rail ZZZ will make it easy for you. Here's a link to our interactive video game media agreements. Let's talk soon. This agreement has severe limitations on how MiHoYo can work with non-union voice actors, including a lifetime limit for the voice actor and eventually forcing the voice actor to join the union, which has large entry costs and fees to stop working on the project. Wait, so there's a lifetime limit even? Imagine you are a voice actor and you cannot work on certain project because there is a lifetime limit on how long you can even work on it. And I thought it was 90 days. That is wild.
Tweet, of course, and the media was running with this. You had PC Gamer and others using some of these direct quotes to try to spin a narrative. They even tried to imply that the original voice actor was replaced after voicing the character for around 5 years, which is literally impossible based on the fact this character that he was voicing was only around for about a year or so. But anyways, big mess, and things have not really been resolved. There's been community notes flying.
Yeah, Hirohei was talking about this, where this person, whoever wrote this article, said that he was voicing this guy for 5 years, but it's just a year now. Okay.
Around a lot of misinformation, a lot of harassment. But today, thanks to this individual right here, Joe Zija, he made a video as a voice actor and teacher trying to give some more insight as to what the hell's been going on over the past week or so. This video is extremely helpful. I'll put a link to it in the description, and it clears up a lot of things. And I want to begin with really the kind of money piece here, and that's the strike itself. Was this a formal SAG-AFTRA strike against Genshin and miHoYo? The answer is no.
I'll say it again. The strike is for specific union games, for specific union signatories.
Interesting. So it is a strike against miHoYo specifically in this case. Only for union actors in union games and companies. Okay, so only Genshin Impact was mentioned, and ZZZ and Honkai Star Rail. So they are targeting only miHoYo. Well, that's interesting.
For actors that are a member of the union. Games that are non-union, meaning that their companies are not signed to union contracts, are by definition not struck. In addition to that, games that started production before the strike are also not struck. It's a very confusing atmosphere, I know, but I can relieve that confusion for Genshin fans specifically by saying this. Do you know what company isn't in that select group of production companies being struck? Hoyo. I cannot emphasize enough that miHoYo properties are not and never have been union games. Therefore, Genshin has never been a struck property. There are 0 union rules governing Genshin or any miHoYo game, period. End of story as of this date. This is not a debate.
So as you can see,
so what that means is that SAG-AFTRA, by striking, is trying to push miHoYo to sign a contract with SAG-AFTRA. Okay.
miHoYo, and as a consequence, products like Genshin, were never striked by the union. They were not subjected to this strike. So there was literally no reason to be going after people like Jacob Takanashi other than as a sort of social pressure that we'll be looking at in just a second. So in this case, you also have to realize there's a lot of Genshin voice actors who are union members who are still working with this company despite the fact it is non-union, which raises a lot of additional concerns. In fact, people who are raising this were called stupid and misinformed on the subject by people.
Not her again. Not Paimon again. Not Paimon again.
Like Karina, the voice of Paimon. If you remember this TikTok right here.
Here's the thing. If voice actors, both non-union and union, in a video game want a game to go union, the game should go union. Nobody else's opinion matters. That's it. And YouTubers don't know anything. YouTubers don't know anything. They're not voice actors. They've never been in my industry. They don't know what my industry is about. They don't know anything about SAG. They don't know anything about being on.
Fire her. miHoYo! Fire Paimon! And I start playing Genshin Impact again. You know what? I'll even stream it. Just get rid of this chick. I beg of you. Just get rid of it. It. Her. Them. Whatever this creature is. Get rid of her. Thank you.
No, a non-union actor.
Also, by the way, she was saying this video that she has posted on her own TikTok. On her own TikTok is AI. That's what she said. This video here is AI on her own TikTok. This woman is retarded. We should just voice act and make your money. What's the damn issue? Well, the damn issue is that miHoYo is not part of the union. If it even can be part of the union because it's a Chinese company.
Either.
So it seems very clear that they think YouTubers and other commentators on the internet know nothing. Now, they're not perfectly knowledgeable about every little aspect of what's going on here, but I think the average person looking at the situation from afar can understand something wasn't right here and something wasn't adding up. In fact, Karina is one of the people who jumped in saying it wasn't a passing of the torch with the replacement of the role, and then later admitting that she's technically scabbing, that she's violating her own picket line in this protest, in this strike, however you want to categorize it, which is funny because now looking back, the words here kind of change. She is a scab to her own strike because it's an informal strike that she and others have launched. She is going against it by continuing to work with Genshin. But also in another sense, she is not scabbing because she's not crossing any sort of a line because this is not a union project and she is a union actor. But that also raises other...
The problem is that technically what SAG is doing, technically they couldn't be able, according to their own rules, they shouldn't be able to work with MiHoYo. They still do it, so they technically break their own rules. They're really weird. Whether they want to be part of the union, I'm hardly paying attention since it sounds like a bunch of first world problems. Because that way they can a little more monopolize voice acting. Because you are removing chances of non-union voice actors to work on, for example, Genshin Impact, ZZZ, Honkai Star Rail. I would probably... No. Honkai Impact 3 doesn't have an English... an English dub. But regardless, with this, they can force non-union voice actors to join the union because they can practically put a limit on non-union voice actors on how much they can actually work on a project. The only reason is money, simply put. And canceling out competition.
Other concerns about Global Rule 1, which requires as a foundational principle to SAG-AFTRA that union members do not work on non-union projects.
There we have it. Like I said earlier. They can technically not work on MiHoYo games, but they are still doing it.
And in this case, that's exactly what she's doing, and that's what a lot of these Genshin Impact voice actors are doing who are engaging in this strike. They are violating this core principle, which, if violated, can carry a fine or a dismissal from the union or nothing, depending on how they want to treat the situation. But in this particular case, Karina has an exemption here. She is technically a FI core status, which, to make a very complicated situation simple, she has a way to continue working on non-union projects as a union member. All she has to really do is receive limited union benefits as she's working on the contract, which I find this to be very, very ironic because she is technically scabbing against her own informal strike here and using a technically exemption here. That's okay to her. But Takanashi, a non-union voice actor working on a non-union project, is somehow a scab and a bad person despite having no duty.
Yeah, because he's non-union. It all boils down to them not being part of the union.
To SAG-AFTRA whatsoever. That is very interesting, but you can see from the language here in other tweets that she made saying there's a huge difference when you take the role of an actor who is striking for AI protections. You are no castmate of mine, which again, very ironic. And also, as we saw with the TikTok, the AI protections part is a big farce. It is a Trojan horse to really just get more people to join the union. And that, I think, is very clear at this point. But I want to move on to the next part here where Joe talks about why these Genshin voice actors are doing this in the first place and what their goal was supposed to be.
Okay, so why the hell aren't actors going in to record lines for Genshin if it's not struck? When the strike happened, many Genshin actors got together in various disparate channels and decided that now would be a good time to try to engage with Hoyo and encourage them to take some action. Actors could use the momentum, the social momentum of the SAG-AFTRA strike to include Hoyo properties in the conversation. Again though, it's not a strike, and it has nothing to do with the union. Since this is not a strike, I'm not going to call it a strike. From here on, I'm going to call it a collective work refusal because it's not governed by any one body like SAG.
Interesting. So we can't even call it a... So what it is, then by legal terms, is practically like you work at like a grocery store as a cashier, but you refuse to show up to work. Not because you're striking, but because you refuse to work in this situation. Pretty much, can they not just fire them all? Since it is practically you are refusing to work. It's not a strike, right? It's practically not refusing to show up to work. Interesting.
SAG-AFTRA. There is no one result desired, like a collective bargaining agreement, and there is no penalty for not participating, unlike the SAG-AFTRA strike. If you are a union member and you cross the line and record games you're not supposed to, you can be penalized. In a non-union environment, that doesn't exist. So, what did Genshin actors want? This is where some of the confusion kind of begins. The goal wasn't really totally clear.
So as you can already tell from these clips, Joe is a very professional and nice person. However, I'm not so professional and I'm not so nice. So I'm going to be a little more off the cuff here with how I'm describing everything going on. So he describes it as collective work refusal, and that all of these efforts by these voice actors on social media were an attempt to gain momentum. But as we saw in practice, this wasn't just gaining some sort of social movement. It was more like moral panic and dogpiling. We saw so many voice actors just needlessly harassing Takanashi, and it went way beyond some sort of social movement and way more like personal attacks and blackballing and harassment. I mean, one of the worst people.
Wait! Kaylee Mills, aka Kaching, has deleted her Twitter. She got her ass beat so much she deleted her Twitter. Deserved! Good riddance! Ribozo!
People in this entire situation was another voice actor by the name of Kaylee Mills, who, as you can see, has nuked some of her social media accounts because she couldn't take the heat from the criticism she was facing. And you can see she joined in on the initial post, calling Takanashi diabolical, even calling him a clout chaser. And later on, she would make several other posts which would get hit with a note clarifying that despite her support of the strike, she also is scabbing and working on Nikkei, another MiHoYo product. And things kept getting worse over the past product. And things kept getting worse. She would make several other posts which would get hit with a note clarifying that despite her support of the strike, she also is scabbing and working on Nikkei, another MiHoYo.
You are spreading false information, my sir. Nikkei is not by MiHoYo. Nikkei is by the same people that made, what was it? Stellar Blade. Nikkei was made by, let me check. Who was it? Doesn't matter. It's not by MiHoYo. False information here.
Product. And things kept getting worse over the past couple of days since my previous video, where she admits that she's working on this game for a union rate. So previous complaints by people like Kaylee Mills about not getting paid enough on this project and yada yada yada, they're still getting a union rate in terms of payment. If they were FICOR status, for example, we don't know about Kaylee Mills, they still might have limited union benefits, but in terms of pay, it sounds like they were getting the same exact rate. Then things get unnecessarily personal. So referring to Takanashi, she says this is one small job for him, not his full-time work. It's Karina's bread and butter, the voice actor for Paimon we just talked about. He's done very little voiceover work, so it isn't what he's relying on to pay the bills. For all we know, his wife's the breadwinner. Either way, they bought a house recently, so I doubt it was a necessary job for survival.
That's kind of creepy. You literally searched for ammo. You literally stalked this man for ammo. That's so weird, bro.
That is very unfair on many different levels. Trying to claim the wife is a breadwinner to try to like humiliate him, and also saying that he bought a house means he doesn't really need a job right now. That's the exact opposite. That's how the world works. You get a house, you got to start paying a mortgage or whatever. That's a very crazy thing to say. But like I said, she was getting a lot of flack and eventually just admitted SAG, quote unquote, winning the strike means that their contracts will all have AI protections going forward. It doesn't make every game union. Also, I've worked on several union games with international talent. A game going union does not bar that talent from working. And she's right in some regards here, but also admits that she has worked on several union games with international talent who assumably were not a part of the union as well. But that kind of leads to the next part. We're talking about these AI protections that was supposed to be the heart of this entire strike. Now, I'm going to summarize some of the portions that he had here about California law AB 2602. That is a law that protects non-union, non-represented voice actors in California, where a lot of these individuals reside. The whole point of this is that unless a contract explicitly says their voice will be used for AI replicants, it is assumed that that's not going to be the case. That there's going to be protections for their voice in terms.
Well, it is assumed. That's not a certainty, but it is assumed. I need a brain. You will lose it when you listen to these people. When you read what they are posting. In this case, that work refusal is, they're lying. In this case, they're completely lying. Or they're retarded. It's one of the two.
In terms of AI replicants. So unless the contract literally says we're going to use your voice for AI replicants, the actor is protected. And with the Hoyo contracts, that sort of language is not included. So if you're a non-union voice actor, a non-represented actor in California, you're completely protected, and this strike means absolutely nothing. And like I said, California is the heart of this strike. So that is a very weird thing. And then, of course, the union members have their own protections as well. So it's a bit misleading how people are saying this is all about AI and that everyone's unprotected and there's so much confusion and yada yada. And also he raises the point of what happens if Hoyo decided to go union. Well, I didn't know this and I'm glad he clarified it. There have been Chinese companies in the past who have worked with unions before. However, if they go union, non-union members will not be immediately replaced. In fact, if they live in a right-to-work state in the United States, nothing happens as a result of a company like Hoyo going union. And Texas is important because a lot of voice actors live in Texas as well. That's why Crunchyroll and other studios have had a lot of studios there, because they have this right-to-work law that works in their favor in terms of being able to hire both union and non-union. And again, in this scenario, if you're you are non-union, and you're not in a right-to-work state like Texas, you have 60 days to continue while receiving these temporary union benefits. Then you have to decide whether to join the union or not, or to stop receiving the benefits. But apparently, according to Joe, this has many caveats and is very flexible. But this leads me on to the last clip I want to see or share with you guys from this video.
So very quickly, if you're in Texas, you're kinda... nothing changes. If you're in Texas, nothing changes. And since there's a lot of voice actors in Texas, so Crunchyroll resides in Texas, you're kind of fucked. SAG-AFTRA.
And it has to do with SAG-AFTRA and the benefits and costs of joining a union like this. And as you can see, they got community noted because it's not as easy as they make it out to be. Joining SAG-AFTRA comes with a lot of requirements that are very costly.
The entry fee itself can be steep, depending on where you live. Mine was nearly $4,000 when I joined 10 years.
Oh my god. Entry fee? So you are practically what they want to achieve is that you are being forced to pay $4,000 to continue voice acting. My god. Hi, Raichu. How you doing? Hope you're doing good. Wow! Neat!
Years ago. So that talent would have to know for certain that we're going to get at least 5 sessions out of Genshin to make up for that loss. That's about how much money you'd make in 5 Union video game sessions, depending on the tier that you're in. Again, complicated. Or that actor would have to feel confident enough that they could book other Union work to help them bring that number, that entry fee number, back to 0. You do get pension and health benefits, okay? But you only qualify for health benefits if you earn a certain income of Union work, around $30,000 a year. You would need to do 30 Genshin sessions.
Damn! After sending their voice actors into the coal mines. Interesting.
To make that. Probably more like 35. Here's another big one that's become a very hot button issue in the last 8 months. Joining the union also technically prohibits an actor from doing any non-union work, which statistically comprises nearly 80% of all voiceover work available. We call this rule Global Rule 1, so you might have heard that terminology before. When you're union, you cannot work non-union jobs, period. Yikes. So now I'm going to start dividing the room here in this video. I'm going to piss some people off because even if you're a little bit of a detective, you have to be asking this question so far. If you're in the union and you're in Genshin, are you breaking the rules? The answer is, you guessed it, you've been paying attention, it depends. But yes, probably.
I mean, we already looked at this page from SAG-AFTRA here, talking about some of the initiation fees that apparently do fluctuate depending on where you live, and also how some of your base pay is taken and things like that. It is a mountain of responsibilities. Of course, there are some benefits.
The national initiation fee rate is currently $3,000, although it may be lower in some states. Annual base dues are $236.60. In addition, work dues are calculated at 1.575% of covered earnings up to... Okay. Still paying to go into a union? I don't know about that one.
But they are tied to very stringent requirements. Like the requirement about 30,000 a year of union contracts is a very steep requirement. It's not a secret, guys. Voice acting is not some gold mine of money. Like, they're historically very underpaid. So to make that much just through union contracts, that's very tough. And a lot of the Genshin voice actors we're talking about in this scenario probably don't even have a chance at making that through at least Hoyoverse games. And yeah, again, we go back to Global Rule 1. And I think a lot of the Genshin VAs participating in the strike are probably breaking it, and they're not FI-Core status. But anyways, I want to wrap up this video. I think it provided a lot of clarity, and I thank Joe Zija here. I'll put a link to his video in the description, again, if you want to check it out. But hopefully this clarified some things. It seems like there's a lot of misdirection and people being misinformed about what this strike is in the first place, and a lot of voice actors really made fools out of themselves by misrepresenting what's going on here and what they were trying to achieve. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video. As always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below.
My thoughts are very simple. MiHoYo, clear up the trash. Every single one who refuses to work, who continues to be a piece of shit, straight up fire them. You could probably replace people who are a lot more grateful for the work and a lot more grateful for the position that they're in. Motherfucker. What the fuck is going on? If not, just fire Corina. Just fire Paimon. Thank you. Appreciate it.